3.7. Blue-green deployments. Two parallel environments for safety. Imagine this. Your team has a new version of the application ready. It fixes bugs, improves performance, adds features people have been waiting for. But there's one problem. It needs to go into production. And production is where real people live. You're standing in a meeting room or Slack channel, and everyone quietly knows the truth. If we deploy this and something goes wrong, users will feel it instantly. So the conversation starts. Someone suggests the first obvious idea. We'll upgrade production directly, but carefully. Maybe with maintenance windows. Maybe late at night, maybe with lots of checklists. And it might work, but everyone has lived through that one moment when the careful plan collapses and rollback becomes a painful, messy race. Then another idea appears. What if we just spin up a staging environment? Good thought, and staging helps. But staging is never truly production. Different data, different load, different surprises. Someone else pushes further. Okay, what if we deploy the new version into production, but secretly, with almost no users on it? Now the room gets quiet, because that sounds interesting. The thinking continues. What if we had two production environments instead of one? One serving users, one acting like a rehearsal stage. You imagine the flow. Users continue using the current version, no disruption. The new version is deployed somewhere else, quietly. You test it, you watch metrics, you try critical workflows, and suddenly the idea grows. What if, when we're confident, we simply switch traffic from the old environment to the new one? A single flip, no in-place upgrade, no risky overwrite, no downtime rituals. And then someone asks the most important question of all. Okay, but what if the new version turns out to be worse? You smile, because now the answer is obvious. We flip back. Not panic, not firefighting, just reverse. At this point, the solution is no longer abstract. It feels almost boring, and that's exactly why it's powerful. Two identical environments. One active, one waiting patiently. Deploy to the quiet one. Verify, observe, gain confidence. Then, and only then, switch traffic. And keep the old environment intact, untouched, ready to take back control if the future misbehaves. That moment, when experimentation happens beside production instead of inside it, is when blue-green deployment finally clicks. It's not about color names. It's about respect for your users. You test change where it cannot hurt them, and only expose them to it once it proves itself trustworthy. In practice, blue-green is much less mysterious than it sounds. Once the team agrees on the idea, the first step is simple. You treat production not as one environment, but as two. At any given moment, one of them is live. The other is a full copy, but idle from the user's point of view. People usually give them names just to keep track. Right now, blue is live. Green is our next candidate. But the names don't matter. What matters is that both are real, complete environments. Same services, same wiring, same external integrations, same configuration style. If one of them is special or half-configured, the whole model loses its safety. When a new version is ready, the team resists the old instinct. Deploy directly onto whatever is currently live. Instead, they deliberately pick the idle one. If blue is serving users today, the new build goes to green. That deployment can take time. It can fail. It can be fixed and redeployed. None of that touches real users yet. After deployment, the team doesn't rush the switch. They do the boring work. They point internal tools, test accounts, or synthetic traffic at green. They run the most important business flows: login, checkout, search, critical API calls. They compare logs and metrics between blue and green. Error rates, latency, CPU, memory, anything that might hint that the new version behaves differently under load. Sometimes they even shadow live traffic. A copy of real requests is sent to green as a ghost, processed, logged, but not used to answer users. This lets the team see how the new version behaves under realistic patterns, without any risk. Only when confidence is earned, not assumed, does the switching moment arrive. At the edge of the system, there is always something that decides where incoming requests go: a load balancer, an API gateway, a reverse proxy, a cloud front door. That component becomes the switch. For a long time, it has been sending everything to blue. Now, in a controlled moment, the configuration changes. Send traffic to green instead. From the user's perspective, nothing magical happens. They keep using the same URL. They don't change apps, there is no visible cutover ceremony. But inside the system, the active environment has changed. From that moment on, green is production. Blue becomes the standby. And this is where the real benefit appears. If after the switch, something subtle starts to go wrong, maybe error rates creep up, maybe latency patterns look suspicious, maybe a rare edge case starts appearing in logs, the team does not have to invent a rollback. They already have one. The rollback is simply send traffic back to blue. It's the same operation as before, in reverse. The old version was never deleted, never overwritten, never half upgraded. It is still there, fully intact, ready to take control again. That is what makes blue-green different from many other deployment styles. You are not modifying the world in place, and you are switching between two worlds. Of course, there are practical details and limits. Stateless services are the easiest fit. If each request is self-contained and doesn't depend on a lot of local state, switching between blue and green is almost trivial. Stateful systems, especially databases, require more discipline. You usually can't have blue schema and green schema that are completely different if both environments share the same underlying data. So teams tend to design database changes in a backwards compatible way. First, they deploy schema changes that both old and new code can live with. Then they deploy the new application version. Only after everything is stable do they remove old fields or old paths that are no longer needed. In other words, the database evolves in small steps, while blue and green swap who runs on top of it. Some teams also use partial blue-green. Instead of duplicating everything, they apply the pattern to a critical service or a particular edge of the system, like the public API layer, while deeper components use other strategies. The core idea is the same. Change happens on the side, not directly under users' feet. There is also a cost side. Keeping two full environments is more expensive than one. That's why not every company uses pure blue-green for everything, all the time. But many adopt it for high-risk changes, core services that must not go down, or times when they're about to modify something that has a long blast radius. The important thing is this: blue-green isn't a religion. It's a tool. You can use it for some parts of the system and not others. You can run it permanently, or only during risky migrations. What matters is the mindset. We don't experiment on users. We experiment next to them, and only invite them in when we're ready. And if the future misbehaves, the present can take over again. Once you truly understand that, the implementation details, whether the switch is a cloud load balancer, an API gateway, or a routing rule, are just plumbing. The real power of blue-green is that it changes how teams emotionally relate to deployments. Risky cutovers become reversible decisions. Deployments become smaller and more frequent because fear no longer builds up between releases. And that's what companies care about in the end. Not that you can recite the definition, but that you understand how to make change safer without freezing progress. When interviewers bring up blue-green deployments, they aren't checking whether you memorize the definition. They want to hear whether you understand why a team would choose it and what trade-offs come with it. A weak answer usually sounds like, blue-green means you have two environments and you switch between them. Technically correct, but shallow. A stronger answer sounds more like this: blue-green is about safety during deployments. We keep two production-ready environments, one serving users, one idle. We deploy the new version to the idle one, test it there, and only switch traffic when we're confident. And if something behaves badly, we switch back instantly, without doing a complicated rollback. This shows understanding of risk and awareness of rollback versus switchback, empathy for user impact. Great candidates go one step further and mention trade-offs. It's not free. You maintain two environments, and databases often require careful, backwards-compatible migrations. So we don't use blue-green everywhere, but it's perfect for high-risk changes and critical systems. That tells the interviewer, You don't see tools as magic, you see them as engineering choices. And the best candidates connect blue-green to culture. The biggest benefit wasn't technical, it changed how we deployed. People stopped being afraid of releases because failure stopped being catastrophic. That's maturity, transition, from blue-green to canary thinking. Once a team becomes comfortable with switching entire environments at once, and another thought naturally surfaces. Do we really have to switch everyone at the same time? Blue-green says, old world or new world, choose one. But sometimes the new version is risky enough that you don't want to expose all users immediately. Even with a rollback plan, you start wondering, what if we could let a small percentage experience the new version first? What if we could watch real behavior, collect real metrics, and only then gradually increase exposure? That idea leads us directly to the next strategy: canary releases, where change doesn't jump across the system. It quietly walks in, step by step. End of 3.7.